Listen closely. Before famine had a name, before it appeared in reports or speeches, it arrived quietly, like a silence that stayed too long. In Darfur, life had always followed the sky. We did not count years by calendars, but by rain. When the clouds gathered, the land breathed. When the rains fell, the people lived. Rain was not weather to us. It was a promise, a covenant between earth and heaven. In 1984, that covenant was broken. The clouds came as they always had, heavy and slow, casting shadows over the plains. Farmers prepared their fields, women guarded their seeds, children waited for the first drops with laughter already rising in their throats. But the clouds drifted apart without rain. Day after day the sky teased us, then turned away empty. Weeks passed, then months. The soil hardened, cracking open like broken pottery. Fields that once shimmered with sorghum and millet stood naked and lifeless. Hope rotted in the ground before it could sprout. Livestock felt it next. Cattle wandered farther each day, ribs pressing against skin, eyes dull with exhaustion. Milk dried up, meat disappeared. At night, their hollow cries echoed through villages already filled with the sound of children crying for food. In Darfur, cattle were not just animals, they were dignity, wealth, memory. Watching them die was like watching the pillars of life collapse one by one. Hunger did not arrive as an enemy at the gate. It slipped inside quietly. One meal became half. Half became nothing. And then even memory began to starve. I was working then, traveling between villages to repair water yards, the last lifelines in a drying land. Everywhere I went, I saw the same fear spreading slowly. Old men sat outside their huts, staring at the sky as if waiting for an answer. Women whispered in markets that had nothing left to sell. Children grew thinner, quieter, older too quickly. The famine had not yet declared itself, but it was already inside us. Its face first appeared at the edges of Buram town. People arrived quietly at first, sitting under trees, leaning against walls, resting in the dust. They were not from Buram. Their accents were different, their clothes torn, their eyes carried something words could not hide. They had walked for days. Families came carrying exhaustion instead of belongings. Mothers held children whose bodies felt too light. Men leaned on sticks not because they were old, but because hunger had taken their strength. Donkeys staggered under loads that were mostly air. They did not demand, they asked for work, for food, for water, for anything. I saw women digging into ant nests with bare hands, collecting tiny grains stored by insects, gathering them as if they were gold. Others boiled bitter, poisonous seeds, soaking them for days to reduce the poison, feeding them to their children with trembling hope. The smell of that boiling mixture, sharp, acrid, still follows me. It was the smell of desperation. That was when we understood the famine was no longer distant. It had reached our doorstep. Together with the assistant governor, health officials, tribal leaders, and merchants, we made a decision. We would open a camp south of Buram. It would be temporary, we told ourselves, a small act of mercy, a bridge over a crisis. At first, it worked. 500 people, a few tents, some donated sacks of sorghum, oil, powdered milk, water from a nearby station. It felt manageable, but famine does not respect plans. Word spread faster than preparation. The camp became a magnet for despair. Hundreds arrived, then thousands. They came from the north and west, from villages already erased by hunger. Some collapsed before reaching the gates. Some arrived with only half their families, having buried the rest along the road. At night, the camp echoed with sounds that never leave you. Children crying from hunger, coughing that rattled hollow chests, and the heavy silence of men who had lost everything. We built a small field hospital from scraps, wood, old sacks, plastic. It was not a place of healing, only a fragile line between life and death. Mothers carried children whose bellies were swollen not from food, but from starvation. Some children were so weak that their bodies could no longer hold themselves together. Nurses and doctors worked with shaking hands, doing what they could, knowing it was never enough. Buram Hospital itself had only one doctor. One man, manager, physician, surgeon, witness. He moved through the wards like a man carrying an entire nation on his back. Supplies vanished, antibiotics ran out, bandages were torn from clothing, IV bottles were washed and reused. Still the patients kept coming. There was no pharmacy in Buram, not one. Medicine became memory. Herbs replaced drugs, prayers replaced treatment, courage replaced equipment. Each day, more people died. And still, the government denied everything. Darfur was starving, but power refused to say the word. The governor carried the truth to Khartoum and spoke plainly. Famine had arrived. Declare it, he said. Open the door to help. The president refused. Sudan was the breadbasket of the world, he said. A breadbasket could not starve. Later, when the president came to Darfur to see what he called the so-called famine, a minister stepped forward holding groundnut cake, the bitter waste left after oil extraction, the food of desperation. He held it up and said, "This is what our people are eating." The truth was not answered with help, it was answered with lashes. That day, famine was not only denied, it was punished. Hunger did not kill alone. Silence helped it. Water became the last defense. As director of the Rural Water Corporation for southwestern Darfur, I carried responsibility for 75 water yards. Each one was a heartbeat. Without them, hunger would be joined by thirst. The largest station fed Buram and the camp. Its pumps worked day and night, straining under demand. Diesel was scarce, oil was precious. Every breakdown felt like a death sentence waiting to happen. With my driver and maintenance teams, I traveled constantly. Dust roads, burning sun, empty stomachs. We scavenged parts from broken stations to fix others. Engines coughed back to life through sheer determination. When water flowed, children laughed briefly. When it stopped, fear returned instantly. My workers were starving too, engineers, clerks, guards, drivers. Some sent their families to the camp. I could not let them stay there. I brought them home, I gave them food, from donations, from markets, from my own house. I was newly married then, my wife never complained. Whatever we had, she gave. "They need it more," she said. "Leadership during famine is not power, it is sacrifice measured in grains." Weeks passed, markets emptied, even traders had nothing left. My body began to weaken, my hands shook, my vision blurred. I felt cold even under the sun. I hid it. Leaders must not fall, but bodies tell the truth. One day in my office the world tilted. I reached for the desk. Strength vanished, papers blurred, and then I fell. When I woke, my staff stood around me, fear in their eyes. The director had collapsed, not from illness, but from hunger. In that moment, I crossed a line. I was no longer only a witness. I had become evidence. I barely recognized myself. Ribs pressed against skin like prison bars. My face hollowed, my skin cracked and peeled. Walking across a room felt like crossing a desert. Hunger lived inside me now. It woke me at night. It slowed my heart. It emptied my thoughts. Even emotions faded, joy, anger, grief, dulled into numb endurance. Famine does not only destroy bodies, it erases identity. Numbers came later, tens of thousands dead, then more. But numbers lie. I remember faces. A silent girl staring at an empty pot. A mother who buried 2 children on the road. A herder who once owned 50 cows, now holding only a stick. A woman who starved herself so her mother and son could live. These faces are famine. Then one morning, the sound came. Helicopters. Metal birds descended from the sky, heavy with grain. Dust rose, people cried, children laughed for the first time in months. White trucks followed, rolling through clouds of dust, carrying food stamped with foreign names. Aid had arrived, lives were saved, but every sack carried humiliation. Why had we needed to fall so far to be seen? When food returned, scars remained. Seeds had been eaten, fields stood ready, but empty. Hunger had stolen the future. Looking back, famine was not only drought, it was denial, silence, punished truth. I tell this story not to reopen wounds, but to keep them visible. Because famine is not history. It is a warning.